Hey everyone, Ashton here from MuseThemes.com. Today we have a new release called our Multiscroll widget. What we have here is an interactive and compelling full-screen presentation widget, and as I scroll down, you can see the page kind of takes a life of its own with this kind of multi-layered scroll as the page transforms itself into the next slide. This can make for a nice landing page, splash page, or even home page of your site. Now the widget itself is quite simplistic in nature, but it does require a bit of a setup. An intermediate knowledge of Muse will come in handy for this one, as well as Photoshop if you plan to include imagery. This is a desktop-only widget. As you can see, the crux of this presentation involves these kind of vertical panels, so this wouldn't really be feasible on a tablet or mobile phone without the horizontal real estate to work with. Now, although the widget isn't terribly complicated, it's a dense widget in its inner workings, so this is definitely recommended to be used for impact and not combined with many other page or widget elements. As usual with Muse, widgets that kind of command the attention of the entire page don't play well with others. However, this can be used in conjunction with headers, footers, and any kind of text and/or button that you want to include in your panels. Let's switch over to Muse. To make things easier, we've included the project file from the live demo in the downloaded zip file. So you'll have access to this file we're working with right now where everything is already set up and functioning. So feel free to use it as inspiration to make yours from scratch, or even copy and paste elements and use it as a launchpad. Let's jump into the home page here. Now, as I mentioned, this demo is already set up and functioning, but I'm still going to drag the widget out of the library really quick and drop it onto the page, just so you can see where we begin. All you get is this super wide widget element, just like the one you see at the top of the page here. Now once you begin, you'll want to set the widget to full width and place it right on the top edge of your page, as has already been done here in the demo. So let me go ahead and remove this now. Now, quick note, this doesn't absolutely have to be placed at the very top of the page. You can place it lower if you wish, and you'll probably want to if you plan to have an independent header on the page. The panels themselves will begin on the page where you place this, but in most cases, at least for now, let's leave it at the top. Also, if you do intend to use a header, it's actually probably best placed on a master page. You can use the same master as the rest of your site, or on its own master, it's up to you. Just make sure to layer the header elements above the Multiscroll widget in the Layers panel so that the widget doesn't cover it. Now let's take a quick look at our breakpoints. As I mentioned, this is a desktop-only feature, and I definitely recommend keeping the width above at least 900 pixels wide, and probably want to make sure that it's on your highest breakpoint no matter what. The widget will expand nicely when the browser is sized larger. So as for those smaller breakpoints, you'll just want to make sure to hide the widget on the other breakpoints, as well as the panel elements. And otherwise, you can do anything you want on those smaller breakpoints. And again, if you're unsure, just refer to the way this live demo is set up. This will show you exactly what you need to know. Let's jump into the widget settings panel. Here we have Enable Navigation, which is pretty self-explanatory. So just make sure this is checked if you want those pagination dots to show on the page, followed by, of course, the color selection for it. Next is an option called Hide Multiscroll Below Specified Browser Size. This one is actually pretty important to ensuring that your breakpoints function properly. This setting tells the browser to properly hide all the things related to this widget on the smaller breakpoints. So set this parameter to match the smallest breakpoint where the widget appears. Now, as I mentioned, it's recommended to only use this on your largest breakpoint. But let's say you were using it on two breakpoints, perhaps your 1200 and 900 breakpoint as we see here. You'd want to set that parameter to 900, meaning that everything below that would then hide the widget. And up here on the top of the settings panel, we have the graphic styles for the panels themselves. Now we can see here that this allots for 3 total full screen panels, 3 left panels and 3 right panels. And they're constructed with, you guessed it, state buttons. So let's close out of this and shift our page to the side a little bit. So just from looking at this layout, you can probably get a pretty good idea as to what's required here. We're working with a separate state button for each half of the panel, which is what's giving us that split scrolling type of action. So as I mentioned, feel free to use these as starting blocks, or easily create your own by simply going to the native Muse widgets panel and dragging out a state button widget. And I'll zoom us out here a bit too as well. Then we'll want to right-click on the button and select Clear All Styling, and then again for Clear Widget Contents, leaving us with just an empty state button. Now for sizing, I'd recommend keeping in the same ballpark as our example here. These each are 800 by 800 pixels, and you can do that simply by selecting our new button and typing up here 800 for both the height and width. And I'll go ahead and move this over a little bit. Now, the reason you want to give it a good sizing is so that you have enough room to space out the content that you're going to be dropping in here. Now, the size of these have no direct correlation to the size that they will appear on the page, but rather they'll simply be filling the whole page as we saw in the demo. But definitely you want a good enough size that you can space stuff out and not have elements bunched together. If you, say, used a 200 by 200 state button, all of the content would be really tight against the top of the page and mushed together. So this way you have better control of where the content is actually going to appear. And then from here, you can fill these with color, images, gradients, and text boxes galore. And this is where the creativity comes into play, and also where you're going to spend most of your time when working on this widget as a whole. One thing too I do want to mention, there's a particular way to set up the split image design that you saw in the live demo. So if you're not going to use color fills, you want to use an image fill, a little bit of Photoshop knowledge will go a long way here. And I'm not going to give a full detailed description of this, but basically what you want to end up with is 2 image files, both square, both making up for half of the image itself. So what you can do is you can take any image you want and crop it to a 2:1 ratio, 2 parts wide, 1 part tall. And then simply dividing it down the middle in half, and that will give you 2 square halves of the same continual image. And then from there, you'll just need to do an image fill for each state button on each side. Now let me select this flamingo image here, which is our second panel, right side. You can see we have it set to responsive width, which is good. Let's expand the fill menu. You'll want to make sure that the image is set to scale to fill. And you can also see here that we have the position pinned on the far left. And make sure to do this for all of your right panels. And you'll want it pinned right for all of your left panels. This ensures that the images are pushed in all the way to meet at the very center of the page as they should. And finally, you'll need to name your state buttons. So let me remove this one I made here. I'm going to select the first one in the example, and we'll expand our graphic styles panel. And we can see here it's been given a name of Scroll-1L, meaning the first panel on the left. So let's jump into our settings panel again. And we can see here that our first graphic style matches for the left 1 content. And you can name them whatever you want, just make sure you enter them here in the panel once you do so. So thanks everybody for watching, that's our multi-scroll widget. Now don't be daunted by the specifics, once you get the hang of it, it's actually quite simple to use and has endless applications. And if all else fails, just revert back to the demo file and start again. So thanks again for watching, and as always, we're always here in support if you need us, so don't hesitate to hit us up. And until next time.